nickel, 9. Yeah. 5-9J. Let me speak my mind up. It's just me keeping it real. Keeping it 100. Let's go. Yeah.
Hey, yo, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed, and like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Being said, man, you guys heard about the murder that took place in Calipat State Prison. This guy right here, Alberto Martinez, aka Beto, which he was known by with a couple of women that he was associated with, but in the penal system, he's known as Crook. Now, I did a story about Crook. He's from Pacoima. And I did a story a long time ago. Let me give you guys a little quick backstory before I get into the details why he got blasted. Because I actually know why he got blasted. Not from an article, actually from a lot of close people. And it's a very interesting story. So, a long time ago, I did a story about him because I was talking to an active member on death row. Now, I never relinquished that information to the public, but you know, I recently seen an interview about him, and he talked about his little situation. He has a documentary done on Amazon Prime about him, and I was even going to do a reaction to the documentary on Amazon Prime about him and his little love story, but, you know, I chose to kind of pull away from that and allow him to do him because I understood the decision he was going to make once he went to the main line. So I let it be. But that individual was giving me a lot of death row stories about a lot of people, including Smokey, the Mexican Mafia member that's on disregard right now as we speak. He told me about the Ayala brothers. So I was able to provide, you know, a substantial amount of information, interesting information to you guys in regards to the Mexican Mafia on death row. Well, Alberto Martinez was on death row. He got sentenced to death because this guy right here was inheriting a trucking business, a family trucking business. And this woman right here just happens to be his sister, hired Alberto and a couple of his friends from Pacoima to kill him because she wanted to inherit the family business. So if you read the article, the case law, like I did, he was already working for a lot of Mexican Mafia members. So he took this as an opportunity to gain 10 or 20,000. I'm not sure what the actual murder for hire money was. I can't remember the details. I read it a long time ago when I did a story about him. But it was a murder for hire. And he got cashed out, and he was going to get cashed out after the murder. So they killed this man in order for the sister to inherit the family trucking business. Well, he gets busted with his friends. The whole case comes out. The sister happens to be free. The secretary that was involved in a lot of the schemes to set it all up, that made contact with the Pacoima gang members and the Mexican Mafia associates, she's free. Crook was supposed to get 25 to life after the death row thing, the whole situation with Gavin Newsom, you know, taking inmates off death row and putting them in general population. He was supposed to receive 25 to life. So he's in the penal system. But when I first did this story about him and a girlfriend that he was writing named Brenda, it's actually published in the 2023 article that I was just reading like not even a couple hours ago. See, I knew the personal relationship he had with Brenda on death row. I knew the schemes they were doing, the antics they were doing, who they were working for, the businesses that we're conducting. I didn't know nothing about Brenda testifying against him in court. And I didn't know about him self-admitting in court that he was a Mexican Mafia associate and that he did get caught with multiple cell phones on death row from 2014 to 2019. So they were already on him. They already knew the significance of his presence being on death row and who he was associated with, especially the Ayala brothers. So he gets killed in Calipat State Prison. He gets beat on by multiple inmates, one after the other after the other. One inmate socked him, knocked him down. More inmates jumped in. But there were signs of inmate manufacture being used during this whole process. Well, the suspects have been identified, so they're going to be charged with murder in the penal system, right? Here's a story. This is the part of the story that gets tricky for me. And I got to self-admit that. I have to be honest with that, so it's not on my conscience like every day. I was aware, maybe about, I want to say 2 or 3 months ago, I was aware that this man was going to get engaged upon. There was nothing I could have done. But sometimes I ask myself, maybe publicly doing a video, maybe he would have been aware of the situation. He would have been aware that I was aware of the situation and that other people were aware of the situation. And maybe he could have got an idea, made a better decision for himself and just walked away from the lifestyle. In his mind, he was convinced that he didn't do no wrong, but he did a lot of wrong, because on death row, before he was released to the general population, he wasn't programming with a lot of people. He was separated from a lot of people. He was identified on death row as being in bad standings with the Mexican Mafia and the Sureños because of antics that he was being accused of and what he did. Now, in his mind, he didn't do none of it. And the people that he was associated with and that he was in contact with, he was telling them, don't believe it. I didn't do none of it. But so he was well aware that he was under investigation by the organization he worked for. After all these years now, the 2023 Los Angeles Times article talks about a certain situation. Now, he fell in love with this girl over a cell phone. They used to FaceTime together, video chat. He sent her school supplies. He bought her apartment. He was paying for her rent, $700 a month. Brenda actually hooked up with a dude named Funny. Funny was a Sureño that got deported to Mexico from Pacoima, went out there, hooked up with her, got her pregnant, and they had a daughter. Well, one night, Funny happens to go to a bar called the Black Bull. It's a Mexican bar down in Mexico, and him and a couple of bouncers kill somebody. So bam, he gets locked up in Mexico jail. He has a cell phone. He has a cell phone with a cellmate, and they're talking to Brenda. Brenda sneaks into the United States illegally without a visa, and she needs some help. So Funny hooks her up with Flacco, and Flacco says, man, I know somebody in the United States that can, protect you, help you survive, and make sure you're all right. So in doing so, Flacco hooks her up with Crook. Albert Martinez, the victim in this case. So they start chopping it up, and she's asking like where he's at, what's he doing, and he didn't want to tell her at first. Then he finally relinquishes the information that he's on death row. She's kind of scared about it, as she says during the court proceedings, testifying against Alberto Martinez, that, hey, I don't want to be involved in this, such and such and such. But I guess he had a way with words. He seemed highly intelligent. He had the face of a person that was dangerous. But like a lot of women that get involved in these situations, they fall in love. They fall in love with words of endearment. And he fulfilled his promise, paid for her rent, $700, got her nails done, got her hair done, took care of her daughter, always sending her daughter text messages, hope you have a good day in school, so he presented himself as a family man. So, a lot of vulnerable women are going to fall in love with that. That all came out in the testimony. Well, during that time, he had her working for him. She was unaware, even though she had an idea. He did tell her that, he was working for some of the big homies, but don't speak bad on them, show some respect. So she was involved in a lot of conference calls, hearing all the business that they were conducting. He had a lot of people dropping off money to her, bags, $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And then she was responsible for distributing that money to the senoras he gave a list with. So he would provide a list of the senoras' names in the P.O. boxes and said, hey, man, get this money there, put a birthday card or a happy anniversary card from such and such and such. So she was doing all that for him. She didn't ask no questions. She minded her own business. But she was well aware that she was conducting organized crime, because he would admit here and there what he was doing whatsoever. During the testimony of her trial, they identified five people that he had to send money to. And it was a substantial amount of money that was dropped off to her. And he told her it has to go to these specific P.O. boxes and these names. Raul Molina was one, Mexican Mafia member. Fernie was another Mexican Mafia member. And obviously he sent money to the Ayala brothers as well. So she had to distribute a big portion of money to 5 addresses connecting to all these Mexican Mafia members. Like I said, she wasn't really fully aware of the extent of their organized crime or what they were doing or where this money came from or what it consisted of or who it was really going to. She was very familiar with the man's situation. Now, mind you, like I said, when I did this video about Crook and Brenda a long time ago, I was unaware that he was actually married to a woman for like 20-something years, a woman that stood by his side, visited him all the way in San Quentin faithfully. Well, that woman happened to be involved because, like I said, a lot of the senoras that are part of these Mexican Mafia little group chats and prison organization group chats, prison wife group chats, and then they keep in touch with each other too on a regular basis. because they're all familiar with their husband's businesses. I didn't know that my video she had an idea, I guess, from what I've been hearing from a lot of inmates. She had an idea that he was doing something with another woman. And somehow, some way, my video made it apparent, because I had intimate details, intricate details, vital details, far more than what she knew. So that wife of his reached the conclusion that everything that she's been hearing for all these years was the truth, because, me, a YouTuber, ex-Northerner from up north that has a lot of information, was able to obtain that information and publicly, speak about it, which kind of made her decision and solidify all the details and all the rumors that she'd been hearing about. So it put them in a rocky situation when it comes to their marriage. I was unaware of that for a whole year. Then I found out about it from a lot of other inmates, with the things that were going on with Crook. So I felt bad in a way, but in a sense, like I said, that man's business is that man's business. You get caught for doing your business, that's on you. I don't really answer for those kind of things. I was just telling a lot of prison stories. So it put that marriage in a rocky situation. But I'm sure they communicated, they tried to work things out and rekindle the flame. But I was aware that, that wife may have been in contact with a lot of Mexican Mafia senoras. And they were advising her, from what I've been hearing, they were advising her to stay away from him, that he was in bad standings. So when I talked to a couple of inmates, I asked about Crook's situation because, like I said, I memorized everybody that I talk about. Basically, he was getting accused of not delivering money, skimming money, stealing money, but most importantly, his drug habit, and he disrespected a Mexican Mafia member on death row. So I'm assuming that's the Ayala brothers. I guess he got disrespectful and he was on a tier and he was, just blatantly just out in the open talking about Mexican Mafia business on a tier to these guys while he was high. They try to tell him to be quiet. They try to tell him to shut up. They try to tell him like he's overdoing it because he was on a controlled substance. And he continued to do so because, like I said, when you're heavily involved in the prison politics and the organizational politics, you're aware of a lot of details. But it's all behind the scenes through conference calls, through phone calls, through kites, through letter writing, through verbal communication, face to face. But he decided to talk about all this Mexican Mafia business on a tier. And the Mexican Mafia and a couple other people were like, hey, fool, cut it short, bro. Shut up. Like, you're being too loud. You're being obnoxious. And first and foremost, you're talking about Mafia business on a tier while you're high. All grave offenses that could get you killed. Now, I knew there was a portion of the camaradas, the sureños and associates, certain people that were not part of the program on death row because I was aware about it from the death row inmate. He was telling me a list of names that were on disregard, that are under investigation, that weren't in bad standings yet. They were just on disregard, but then there were some people that were just on bad standings that they were waiting to get blasted. So Crook was part of that name, part of that list, should I say. He was in disregard, bad standings. They didn't want nothing to do with them. They were investigating him. They were waiting to get to him. And Crook was aware of that because they had Crook separated from everybody else. Now, I don't know if they had him separated on a dropout yard, so to speak, or, he was just separated from everybody else on a tier because, obviously administration knew that there was some type of conflict that was residing. I just know that his situation was he was not part of the program no more. So I didn't know if he locked it up, if he tried to lock it up, or if he was going to lock it up, or they just had him separated. I couldn't get a great explanation on the details when it came to that. But I was aware this man was in bad standings. So now that I read this article, he gets sent to Calipat State Prison. So obviously he tried to walk the main line, walk in good graces. Maybe he was high on dope, so he forgot about his situation and how they were going to question him. But he happens to go down to one of the two main prisons, Calipat and Centinela. We know the Ayala brothers are in Centinela State Prison. At least one of them is. The other one's in Salinas Valley. So he's close. He's within close quarters to get blasted. And he walked into that yard. And obviously they sanctioned his murder and they blasted him for it. That just goes to show you, man, like, you're going to get put in bad predicaments and bad standings, whether you believe you did wrong, whether you know you did wrong, or what you choose not to believe you did wrong. Your career is on the line when you put your life in the hands of other people that can make decisions for you. The decisions whether you live or whether you die because of your own antics. Sometimes a lot of, foot soldiers, associates, whatever you guys want to call you guys yourself now, You know, you're going to do what's right and you're going to do what's necessary. Sometimes you're going to allow drugs or allow bad decision making to happen, allow the power to get to your head. And you're going to put yourself in a predicament where somebody's not going to like it. Somebody's not going to bless your actions. And you're going to be questioned for it. And you can sit there and say, man, all these years, I got these dudes hundreds and thousands of dollars. I did everything right. I sent them their money. I didn't burn them. Hey, $1 short, somebody's going to get pissed about it. Oh, dude, I kept in contact with them. I was involved with them. I know all this. I know all that. I did them bottles. I did them favors for years. They don't remember none of that when it's your time to be investigated, questioned, put on disregard, or blasted. Everything you did up until that point does not matter. It does not outweigh the consequences that you're facing or the allegations that you're being accused of. They don't care about none of that no more. They care about accusing you of whatever it is. And if they reach the conclusion that you don't belong here no more and that your win needs to be took to set an example for the next generation, bro, everything you sacrificed for and everything you did just goes down the drain. And it goes down the drain with the blood being spilled on that yard because you need to be made the example of. So don't ever think for 1 minute that your loyalty matters, your solidarity matters, your favors and your how you did what you did for them matters. It doesn't account for nothing because that's your job. That's your obligation to the organization. You need to contribute everything about you, all your resources, all your women, your family, running, everything that you have available at your beck and call belongs to them. That's just your job. But the moment that it's time for you to be accused or under investigation or time to get blasted, they're not going to sit back and say, you know what, all these years, man, he actually got me like $30, $40, $50,000. He pulled a couple of hits for me. He got his hood in line working for me. I owe him that to give him a pass. Don't work like that no more. In their eyes, if you got it coming, you got it coming. They're not giving no passes. They're not giving no leeway. There is no sense of leniency on these main lines anymore. When you mess up, you mess up. And that's your life. And that's why I do these kind of videos, even though they're very controversial and very disturbing. Sometimes, you know, I've seen people say, man, it's like extreme. I'm going too far. This is what's taking place in the penal system. And it just sucks, though, because sometimes, well, when I heard this story, when I heard he got killed, I'm like, damn, like, could I have did a video about it sooner? Like, just talking about his situation and his disregard. And maybe it might have opened his eyes and say, man, if this YouTuber knew about it, these guys will know about it. Obviously, I'm in bad standings. Maybe I can make a decision. But, you know, the man killed somebody for money. The man worked for a lot of powerful people for all these years. So I think that was more important to him than if I was to put a video out trying to remind him of his situation and say, bro, you might got it coming. You know, there's a part of me that this morning that just sits there and thinks like, man, could I have said something to prevent this from happening? If they want to be part of the organization, they can. There's nothing I could do. There's no preventative measures that I could have done, even just making a YouTube video that could have stopped it. He knew his situation. He was aware of his situation. He destroyed his marriage, was in love with another girl, manipulated her until she testified against him. You know, whatever goes up must come down. He was on a rise for a very long time. He was associated with all the right people. He made all the right moves for him. But the moment he messed up, you know, he disregarded that. He didn't take time like a lot of people that cross over and sit there and think like, man, do I want to live my life in jail and get killed by it? Or do I want to take the opportunity to say, you know what, leave it all behind, go to SNY, start fresh. Maybe I can fix my marriage, a woman that stood by me for 21 years while I was on death row. He could have thought about all that, but instead he decided to go to Calipat State Prison, try to walk the main line, still try to be this powerful person, and they took his win for it. So that's the problem with a lot of people that are afraid to make that decision and change their life for the better. You know, you're still seeking that power. You still love with this lifestyle. You're still brainwashed and have all these code of ethics and this morality to be part of a gang and never turn your back on your gang. But all these stories I've been telling you, it's always inmates that never want to turn their back on their gang, but their gang was quick to turn their back on him. That's what happened with this story. So very unfortunate circumstances. So I thought I'd bring them details to your guys' attention. So with that being said, like I always say, is one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Peace.